achieving the Sustainable Development Goals through government and universities partnership. This panel is a hybrid event. We have both online and on-site participants. Especially for those who are attending online, this panel is a side event of the 10th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, the annual UN SCAP event held here in the UN Convention Center in Bangkok, Thailand. This side event is organized by Indonesia Ministry of National Development Planning, or Bappenas, in collaboration with the SDG Center of Padjadjaran University, Bandung, Indonesia. Today, we have a few agenda. Let's begin with the welcoming remarks from Professor Amida Aris-Jabana, our host here, the Under Secretary General of UN and Executive Secretary of SCAP. Professor Aris-Jabana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ibu Arya. Selamat siang. Very good afternoon to colleagues here that are attending in person as well as attending online. Very happy to be able to say a few words, just a way of welcoming all of you for this very important side event, which basically understanding more on what the university can contribute to the acceleration and implementation of SDGs. Of course, this particular side event will take the example of Indonesia, in particular Bappenas and SDG Center Padjadjaran University. But of course, we understand that in many other countries, the academics also contribute immensely to the SDG initiative and implementation. Just to share briefly with you, I had also the opportunity to have a direct observation in one of the initiatives facilitated by one university here in Thailand, happened to be Chulalongkorn University. We were in a village a few days ago, and Chulalongkorn University played a very important role in the sense that they advise on a certain concept on how to bring SDG to the villages in Thailand, including aligning all these SDGs. And one particular example that I think is very, very interesting, and I hope Indonesia can replicate or emulate is the implementation of a carbon market at the village level. I find it so interesting. So I hope in Indonesia, aside from policies, this grand thing, policies and all that program, University of Indonesia can also help translate the concrete action, because university has diverse expertise on the ground. So with that, again, thank you very much for the initiative, and looking forward to hearing the presentation that will be made at this very important side event. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Aris-Jabana. Now, let's hear a few words from Professor Rina Indiastuti, the Chancellor of Padjadjaran University, Indonesia. Professor Indiastuti, the time is yours.
Thank you, Bu Arya. Bapak Ibu sekalian, Honorable Executive Secretary of UN SCAP, Professor Armida Alisabana, distinguished speaker, moderator, and participant, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of Universitas Padjadjaran, allow me to express high appreciation to Indonesian Ministry of National Development Planning, Bappenas, and SDG Center, and also UN SCAP, who have arranged the program as part of this conference on SDGs. The theme of the side event of conference is a special discussion on achieving of all targets of the SDGs through government and universities partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce Universitas Padjadjaran shortly. Padjadjaran University has a vision to achieve a world reputable university and have an impact on society. We continue to strengthen the domestic and international collaboration to support the improvement, the quality of education and research, also innovation, which will ultimately have a positive impact on society and strengthen our ranking on the time higher education impact, which represents the success of university implementing the SDGs targets. Education, research, and innovation are essential in sustainable development, making university key contributors to achieving the goals of SDGs. We have a center of SDGs. Now, the Center of SDGs of Universitas Padjadjaran seeks to play the strategic role to help Indonesia achieve SDGs in 2030. Various studies in collaboration with various parties have produced policy recommendations for the central and local governments, especially West Java province and all districts in West Java province to achieve the SDGs targets. Researchers and then expertise and also students work together with the communities, the private sector, and also government to create new approach, like in this seminar discussion, to implementing the SDGs at the national, local, and international levels. This activity is also a step of community service of our university. That is an important commitment of our university that gives the university a unique part in joint efforts to achieve the SDGs. Nowadays, we have some main research. For example, UNPAD gives an attention that the ocean regulates climate and support vital ecosystem services, which are crucial to the Earth system and livelihoods. That is one point of the research. And then the second example, UNPAD has generated feedback for regulations to control the plastic waste in marine environment. As a significant contributor of plastic waste to the marine environment, Indonesia is striving to construct a national strategy for reducing plastic debris. That is two examples. And another SDG Center, that is Professor Arif Ansori, is a key person of the SD Center of Padjadjaran University, do many seminars, do many international as well as national seminars. That seminar produced more research finding that is, for example, notice about the landscape context in Indonesia economic development and so on. Of course, several aspects that have been carried out by Padjadjaran University in collaboration with Bappenas and another government institution, including strengthening research on SDGs to empowering, of course, the SDG Center of Padjadjaran University, and focusing on policy studies with the orientation to the global goals of SDGs. That is our introduction about Padjadjaran University and the SDG Center of Padjadjaran University. I sincerely hope we are all enjoy today on of debate and the further networking among us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Indiastuti. Before we begin our panel discussion, we would like to invite Dr. Vivi Yuraswati to give a welcoming speech about progress and challenge of SDG achievement in Indonesia and the role of government-university partnership. Dr. Yuraswati is the Acting Deputy for Marine Affairs and Natural Resources as the head of National Implementation Team of SDGs, Ministry of National Development Planning or Bappenas. Dr. Yuraswati, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mung Sunti, Honorable Professor Armida Ali Syabana, Undersecretary General and Executive Secretary of UNSK, Professor Rina Indiastuti, the Chancellor of Padjadjaran University, distinguished panelists, as well as ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to share some slides to give some update about the Indonesian's implementations of SDGs and give some introductions on the role of the government and university partnership in Indonesia. On the context of the Indonesian achievement, this is actually based on the data from end of 2021, which shows that around 78% of indicators SDGs have either reached the target or improving. However, we have some remaining challenges that are coming from the indicators that are stuck or getting worse, particularly due to the COVID, or also the data is not available yet. Some of the problems that make us impeded with many problems to achieve the SDGs, including problem to reduce the poverty. And so also there are some increasing numbers of mental health incidents. There are around 3,000 villages that are not covered yet by the electricity continuously. We have still remaining numbers of populations that are not covered yet by the social insurance, particularly for workers. In some areas, there are increased cases of HIV infections. And also, we still have difficulties in the context of energy transitions, particularly for clean energy, and also stagnant index from anti-corruptions. Some achievement that need attention is in the prevalence of undernourishment, because there is a little hikes due to the COVID, or between the COVID 2020 to 2021. And then also still some children without birth certificates because their parents are not yet in the formal engagement of marriage. In order to have birth certificate, they need to go with certain procedures in order to have a formal marriage first for the parents, go through several layers of procedures in some institutions. So that's why, particularly for the some children in remote places, so this is kind of like a last mile problems. The proportion of budget for social protections is increasing, particularly due to the COVID. However, the coverage is impeded because some problem in the targeting data. Our TB incidence is also increasing. So because people quite busy with all the COVID incidents, the TB and the HIV is getting worse. the renewable energy mix, there are still some problem with the regulations that are not in harmony in some part. So we are now also mapping the problem of how to synergize all the regulations in order to have renewable energy implemented well. In the mobile broadband services, particularly also in the last mile or in the remote places, and the food waste now along the line with the increasing of the welfare, there are more and more problem, particularly in the urban area for food waste. So part of the program in Indonesia, we are now taking care of the food loss in the productions, as well as for changing behavior in order to reduce the food waste. Of course, these challenges, we learn from all the experience that we have so far in the SDGs implementations, particularly in achieving the targets. And we learned that key factors for success, including the leadership at the both national and local level to mainstream the SDGs in the context of development. And then, of course, better communication, coordination, information, and educations among stakeholders, improving the database and the system, better collaborations in state and non-state actor, as well as in citizen engagement. On the financing, we are also progressing to expand more resources in the innovative financing. So Indonesia, this is 2 years ago, we are the first of Southeast Asia that already issued the SDGs bond, starting only 500 million euro, but now expanding to around doubling or tripling now. And we also expanding not only for social pillars, but now also including the green as well as the blue focus. This is, I think you will learn more from Pak Arif today. This is coming from the study from the SDG Center UNPAD, which show that COVID actually impede the achievement of the SDGs up to 2 to 3% lower than what we expected, particularly for Indonesia. The challenge is quite high, and it bring us a delay to achieve around 1.6 years. So of course, this will make different situations when we are talking about the locality in Indonesia's part. That's why our collaboration with university now, we are focusing more on how to localizing the SDGs, not only in terms of the each goals, but also learning how the situation and condition of each regions in Indonesia to develop their own implementation strategy built upon the result base. And now we have around 37 SDG centers across Indonesia. This not only from the government or state universities, but also involving the private universities. Some of the projects as well as collaborations, not necessarily in the research base, but also to help the local government to build their own agenda in implementation of the SDGs, starting from the regional action plan, as well as working together with other stakeholders, be it in the business as well as in local NGOs. So our partnership with the universities, focusing on how to localizing SDGs in research. We really want that all the pilot or the study shows the robust result base in which we could develop in our or as an input of policy based on the result base as well as impact, as Professor Armida as well as Professor Rina mentioned about the impact. And many more you will learn from the today's panel discussions, particularly from UNPAD SDG Center. So as a closing, we are aware that our challenges now is more than double, and we need more extra effort to accelerate in order to achieve the SDGs targets. Of course, the challenges in terms of fiscal, imperfect coordinations, data, and many other challenges, I think it's also open up opportunity for us for further collaborations among Asians, among Asia, as well as global. In meeting those challenges, I think strategic role of universities become engine of the research and innovations, as well as credibility in order to have more acceleration in achieving SDGs on time. I think that's all that I could give as a seat of discussion for today. Hope for success and also a productive discussion in this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yuraswati. I believe that your remark will give a good context to our panel discussion today. Thank you. Now we move to our main agenda for this panel discussion. This panel will focus on how the collaboration between the government and the universities that can help to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Now, let us start our panel discussion. Okay, today we have a distinguished panel of speakers. Each speaker have 10 minutes to bring us their unique perspective on that topic. Our first speaker is Professor Arif Anshori Yusuf, the Professor of Economics from the SDG Center, Padjadjaran University, Bandung, Indonesia. He will be discussing the directing and prioritization of SDGs actions and the co-development of analytical tools. Our second speaker is Dr. Yanur Nugroho, the head of the expert team of the Indonesian National SDG Secretariat. Dr. Nugroho will be sharing us the lesson learned from the SDGs Award for the university in Indonesia. Our third speaker is Dr. Rajan Ratna. He is the deputy head from ESCAP, Sub-Region Office South and Southwest Asia. Dr. Ratna will share his experience and provide us lesson learned on establishing the South Asia think tanks, a network of SDGs think tank in South Asia. Our final speaker is Ms. Aryanti Savitri from the Tanoto Foundation. He will be sharing insights on building local capacity through the SDGs Academy. Each speaker now will have 10 minutes to present their ideas, and we will have a short question and answer after the presentation. I would like to encourage everyone, participants here, to actively contribute in the question and answer session. Now, I would like to invite Professor Arif Anshori Yusuf to begin our discussion today.
Thank you, Arya. Let me share some screen. Sorry, salah. Different slide. Okay, I'm going to talk or share about the government-university partnership, in particular area, which is directing and prioritizing SDGs actions, co-development of analytical tools. So, as we may be aware, our biggest SDG challenge is actually its scope, because it's very quite ambitious. Right? So in a way that all targets actually matters, but of course we need prioritization, and it is urgent because resource is limited. So in that way, we should avoid two things. First, we should avoid under investing on area that is lacking progress but urgent. Yet we also have to avoid over investing in areas with already good progress. And also, in addition, some area may have good interlinkages between them. So focusing on this make also economic sense. So, however, meanwhile, we understand that development indicators, including SDG, are often affected by economic conditions. For example, SDG, the reason can be because SDG program needs to be financed, yeah, and that financing is totally affected by economic situation. And also sometime when crisis happens, priority may change. COVID-19 and now the prospect of global recession, I think, is a good example. And government, including Indonesian government, normally typically set up certain activities such as national action plans, building roadmaps, writing voluntary report, in the effort to maximize the chance of getting the target. And in doing this, we have many challenges. For example, so many indicators to take care. Economic conditions change faster than the data, and prioritization and financing should be informed accurately. And also there is a need to identify high impacted areas. So in a way, SDG is not only a development challenge, but also it poses on us methodological challenge itself. And we partner the partner between SDG Center and the Bappenas, or National Planning, we as Ibu Rector mentioned previously, happen in many areas, but in this particular that I would like to present is on two aspects. First, in developing and adopt a protocol of SDG indicator projection to accommodate most recent economic event, particularly those not reflected by data yet, and also in co-developing methods to identify indicator with better interlinkage. So first, let me share about the protocol. So the rationale is, well, data availability often take time to be available. Forecast of economic condition, such as economic growth, that already incorporate most recent event, normally frequently updated by certain institutions. So this is an asset actually for us. And also another rationale is actually there can be a potentially good numbers of indicators of SDG that highly correlated with this economic growth. So we may be able, there is a potential to capitalize on that, methodologically speaking. So for example, we may be able to estimate more recent and forecast of SDG indicators based on those growth. So the issue is which indicator that are suitable and how to identify them. So this is a methodological issues. So then we develop a protocol. I think I won't discuss this in detail, so I really recommend people to read this open access publication in journals. Basically, we develop a transparent and replicable protocol, so people can go to UN Stats database and download the whole database of the indicators, and then run through this protocol to select certain indicator that robust to be able to be forecast using economic growth forecast. So we have certain rule here that can be followed in this protocol. So basically, put it simply, our first approach is we identify some robust growth SDG relationships across countries and adopt this protocol to do that. And then from that, then we in combination with the most up-to-date growth forecast, we project the future trajectory of those SDG indicators. And we adopt it, for example, to ASEAN countries. We published this in a book. For example, we found that the Philippines is the most affected. The gap is 2.6 years, while Vietnam is the least affected. The gap is 0.4 years. The lag, so we can calculate the lag and gap. So the lag is the number of years behind. The gap is the how the crisis affected the performance. And also currently we use this protocol to update Indonesian SDG official roadmap. So that's how we partner with the Bappenas. to renew or to update our roadmap. And in this roadmap, we also apply certain kind of interlinkage analysis. So basically, this interlinkage analysis is we start with creating what we call reveal comparative advantage following certain publication by World Bank and also some escape work. So we identify the comparative advantage of certain indicators across province, and then with that RCA, we identify incidents of successful development based on indicators and regions, and with that we construct some kind of proximity matrix where we can see how closely the indicators relate to each other, and we estimate some centrality measures of such indicator. This centrality indicator indicate the high indicator means highly connected with each other SDGs, yeah? And also that province has higher chance to be successful in other indicator. So in a way that this exercise can provide us with an information of certain SDG certain delivery mechanism must have been shared by some certain indicators, right? So as to improve, so one indicator improve can be followed by improvement of SDG indicator other indicators. For example, as a result, where we find, for example, education, and in particular completions of junior high and enrollment of senior high, including the gap between rich and poor, organized learning, improving sanitation, internet, electricity is the core of the network that it has high impact. Yeah. So government, for example, can prioritize those indicators because they are first within reach. Yeah? It means that the province has most the capacity needed to provide higher level of diversification, and then also they are likely to be successful. So this is just example. So let me conclude because it's very short with some lesson learned. Yeah. So first of all, I think I would like to emphasize that SDG is not only a development challenge, but also often methodological challenge. That's why then university and government can actually partner to meet these challenges. In a way, the partnership should benefit both because in government side, the partnership can strengthen the science-based policy making culture within the government itself. And I think because most of SDG agenda is not only, I think most SDG agenda in my view is achievable only by public service provisioning. So state capacity should always be enhanced, particularly in Indonesia. Yet, on the other hand, from the university side, I think the partnership improved the policy relevance of our research. And as university nowadays are struggling actually to be relevant, yeah, this partnership is a golden opportunity for us to be anticipating those challenges. So in a way, let me say that in my closing word that partnership actually that we experience that emphasize co-development, I think, not client contractor relationship, but co-development, I think makes a difference. This I call intimate partnership, I think will benefit both sides and will be sustained. I think that closed my presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Yusuf, for that insight presentation. Next, we have Dr. Yanur Nugroho from the Indonesian National SDG Secretariat. Dr. Nugroho will be sharing with us the lessons learned from the SDG Award for the university in Indonesia. The floor is yours now.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, friends, I would like to modify a bit the topic that was given to me. Because yesterday we encountered discussion with Ibu Armida in a bilateral with the minister, and Ibu Armida would like me to share a bit on the a bit of dynamics around SDG Center. So just to start, if I quote this research from University of Mauritius, they found this. So the achievement of SDGs, if the university work together with the government and industry, university can contribute up to 47%. If the government works alone, it will only achieve 47%. And if the universities work alone, they will only contribute 4% of the targets. I know this is quite trivial, perhaps the number given, but it's available online. You can check the source, and this lesson learned from University of Mauritius. However, I think it is important to note here that when we talk about the role of universities in Indonesia, we have this kind of mantra. We call it Tridharma, meaning integration of three pillars of higher education: research, education, and community services. And this is how SDGs is implemented, how SDGs is embodied within the universities through these three pillars. And I think this is where I would lay the foundation, how in the first Indonesia SDGs Award, we invited universities to also join in the assessment, and we see some good practices. However, before going deeper there, these are the four, at least, expected roles of universities and SDG centers in achieving the SDGs. One, becoming the center of excellence. Second, mainstreaming SDGs in the academic curriculum. I still remember vividly when I was still in the UK, how MDGs at the time was, I wouldn't say mainstream, but became a main topic in some subjects, in master's dissertation, in PhD thesis. So I can sort of understand why it is important that SDGs needs to be mainstream. However, it is not easy. So this is another challenge. The third one, university can become partner of central and local governments. We know, Professor Arif mentioned numerous times, and as well as Ibu Vivi did, that government cannot work alone. They need assistance, they need inputs, especially in formulating policies. When we talk about evidence-based policy, often the government, because of the limitations, they would need partners. So that's the third role. And the fourth role is assisting in the planning, implementation, including monitoring and evaluation of the SDGs action plan. So, Ibu Vivi already mentioned to you about this, but just want to say once more about this. At the moment in Indonesia, we already have 37 SDG centers as per this month. And if we map against the provinces, 18 out of 38 provinces have SDG centers in their region. This is how we would hope the university can play more important and more significant roles in assisting the governments, especially at the subnational levels. I know that they are still concentrated in the western area of Indonesia, and we need more in the central and in the eastern part of Indonesia. So, how would a university start SDG center? One, they would consult with the government in this regard, the National Secretariat of SDGs, our office, and then after some consultations, then they will do the so-called establishment and launching. Of course, every university is unique in the way they formulate the needs, in the way they would formulate the institutional setting, in the way they would mobilize their resources. And there is no, I would say, recipe or formula which is strict from the office. But we need to make sure that the existence of SDG Center, the establishment of SDG Center, helps both the academia and also the local governments, as well as the civil society or non-government actors in the area. So at the moment, we also have this, I wouldn't say additional, but more on the adding the role. Since yesterday, we have been hearing, even in the main panel, how to involve youth. We try to do it through SDG Center as well. At the moment, there are 18 universities that have Indonesian SDG Campus Ambassadors. And their role is to spread the enthusiasm among young people, among youth. when I was asked by Prof. Arif to share about the SDG award, this is what we look at the moment. These are some highlights of SDG Center activities in Indonesia. So in University of Erlangga, they do some, Erlangga is in Surabaya, Eastern Java. They do the socialization of SDGs through popular channel like music. In Padjadjaran, of course, Professor Arif just mentioned to you. SDG Center in University of Hasanuddin in Makassar, in Lampung. In University of Indonesia, they developed the so-called Green City Metric. So how they deal with the waste, how they deal with energy and climate change, how they deal with governance, water, sanitation, access and mobility, and also spatial planning. So they developed the Green City Metric, SDG Center, University of Indonesia. In University of Hasanuddin, they developed the so-called sustainable report, developed by the University of Hasanuddin in South Sulawesi. In Banten, West Java, they developed the so-called, there is a so-called Banten Shipping Polytechnic. So they do several activities. They look simple, but I think it's important. How they clean the beach with the community, how they plant mangrove to conserve the environment, and how they develop their own sustainability report. I think what I mentioned here is just a glimpse of what SDG Center have done in Indonesia and how they were assessed in the SDG award. I know this is the first award and we still have flaws here and there, but we aim to improve it. But I just would like to share my final reflection on this SDG Center. Why universities need to take part in the implementation of SDGs? There are four, very clear and straightforward. 1, research and innovation. 2, education and awareness. 3, partnership and collaborations. And 4, leadership and, don't forget, advocacy. Professor Arif and I, we have been working together in the Young Academy of Science in Indonesia, and we have tried to advocate evidence-based policies since I cannot remember when, Prof. Arif, but both of us, we try to do that. Advocacy is one thing that university can do the best through science, of course. And how to do this? 1, through curriculum and research activities. 2, practices, creating sustainable practices on campus. 3, encouraging students to get involved. 4, partnering with local communities, business, NGO, government, and lastly, engaging in advocacy and policy discussions. I would stop here and invite for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nugroho. I'm excited myself to bring this idea back to SDG Center at UNPAD Padjadjaran. Now we have Dr. Rajan Ratna from SCAP, who will share to us about the South Asia think tank. You have the floor.
Slide. Yes.
Thank you.
I forgot to inform, sorry.
I'm excited about the ambassador.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me first of all take this opportunity to thank the Ministry of National Development Planning, Government of Indonesia, and also Bappenas, and also our Executive Secretary, Ibu Armida, who gave me this opportunity and introduced me to come here and make this presentation, which I'm going to make. It's really interesting to see the initiative and the lead taken by Indonesia, recognizing how government and university partnership can build. One of the things SCAP has been promoting all along is evidence-based policy making. And whenever you have to do that evidence-based policy making, it requires research and input. And we all know, not that the policy makers cannot do research, but they have so many things to do that certain elements which are important in making policy perhaps could be missed because they have multitasking, running, answering to the bosses, responding to the parliament, the questions. So they wish to work. I was in government for 25 years. And also I struggle the same, so I can narrate that with many of the officials here. Though the senior officers will ask you, oh, give me this number, give me that number, and you struggle doing that. And so I think this is a very important initiative. And this is an initiative which we started doing in Southwest Asia in New Delhi, because most of the member states in our region, they had their own government think tanks. And they were working and supporting the government in formulating policy, including in the trade negotiations which are being done. The next slide. So if you, just to give you a glimpse, that we have all along, like this is an APFSD, it's an Asia Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development. But the sub-regional offices, we do a sub-regional forum on SDGs. And every year, we used to bring South Asia think tanks to come. And that was a stakeholder consultation. So we had a policymaker, we'll bring private sector, and we'll bring think tanks, which included some of the universities, on one platform on brainstorming as to what are the common challenges in Southwest Asia, and how, instead of one country doing its own progress, can learn from other countries. I was very happy when the professor made a presentation on the centrality aspect, because you have 17 goals and 160 odd indicator targets, and then many indicators. But these are all cross-cutting. I mean, you cannot say that economic development will not impact social or will not impact environment. Similarly, anything which you do to mainstream social or social protection will have other impacts. And therefore, such kind of evidence were becoming very, very clear. And so there was a demand which was raised to create a network of think tanks in South Asia. And so we created, a South Asia forum, or South Asia network on SDGs. And we had included initially where they will work on contextualization of the SDGs, identification of the data gaps, monitoring of regional trends, developing regional policy frameworks, addressing special development challenges, etc. And it was one of the thing which ESCAP delivered. The next slide, please. Way back in 2020, that we launched SANS, which was a South Asia network on SDG, and now it has become South and Southwest Asia network on SDGs. And there we are fostering. So it's not only national, it's a sub-regional. So the think tanks of these countries also come on one platform and learn from each other. So like from Indonesia, the papers which he was showing, I saw it is perhaps very important, Professor, if that you can present to some of my think tanks and I can facilitate that, because that is exchange which need to happen. You happen through international conferences, but they are more academic in nature. And the benefit of SANS is that sometimes even you have a tendency for a researcher to look at pure theoretical, and which is not very pragmatic or practical in policy making. And this platform bridges the expectation which a policymaker wants and the result which he is expecting from the research community. Similarly, the research community tells that, look here, this is a methodology which we have used, very sound methodology. So it's robust. The results are better. And on these results, I am giving you these evidences. So that also makes a confidence building in the policymaker in identifying that really, yes, the data is not showing there I am regressing or progressing on SDG, but yeah, this says so. Or if I handle one SDG, maybe it will impact 3 SDGs together. Now that kind of things the research community can only bring. The next slide. So we launched the next slide. Yeah. So we launched SANS on 2nd December 2020 at the 4th SDG forum. Yeah, this one. And this is our web page. I will show you what it has. And we have institutional members. We have also advisory committee, and the government and the think tanks are the members. The understanding that this was between government and researcher. The next slide, please. So we have these think tanks, you can see. So we have a Biruni Institute from Afghanistan, Center for Policy Dialogue from Bangladesh. We have South Asia Network on Economic Modeling, which is in the Dhaka University from Bangladesh. We have many from India, and India, most of them are government think tank. We have South Asia Watch on Trade and Economics and Environment, Southi in Nepal. SDPI is in Pakistan. The head of the SDPI is also in the Prime Minister's Advisory Council. The Kathmandu Southi is also into many government policy advisory group. RIS from India is leading the Think Tank 20 initiative of G20 presidency in India now. So these are these institutions who are member, and they were the ones who demanded from us. And so we have a membership from Turkey, and Maldives National University has also applied for this membership. And every year we do 2 or 3 brainstorming among these think tanks or the universities. They decide on the research which ESCAP need to do for that particular year to help the countries in attaining the SDGs. And then we go back and provide the policy brief for the government, various governments. Now, the next slide. The website, if you go, it will give you all the countries which are member, their government link, their think tanks link. We also have some of the civil society who are participating in it. We have on our website, we are working on it last 3 years. We have developed around 1160 good SDG practices, which are at a local level, sub-national level, or a national level, which is implemented. And that database, I will show you. You can do a lot of work with that database. The next slide. We also have the link to the resource tab. So all these think tanks, whenever they come out with any research, any output, and when we started the COVID hit, so we had 2 links, one for the COVID, another for SDG. So all their studies are linked here, are put there. And we have further classified these studies into either it's a country study resources, or it is a regional or a sub-regional study which has been done. So any kind of search you want to do is available on one platform. So this we have also developed as a knowledge depository, because each institution has its own website where they put. But for some researcher, they have to find and struggle looking at various researches, methodology, etc. So we thought it would be good to put it at one place. The next. So this is, again, there we have a good practices on SDG database. These are the one which have brought positive changes at a local level or a sub-national level or a national level. And you can search through SDG, you can search through target, you can search through keywords. So if you want to know about water, it will give you all the results in Excel below, and you will know. And it also provides the web link for either the government policy or the research or an action which has been taken at a local level. So we have uploaded last on 31st of January 2023 1160 such practices, and we upload every 3 months.
Sorry, Dr. Bappenas, to interrupt. Could you please wrap up? Sorry.
Done.
Yeah.
So this is our web page. The next slide. And this is my email if you want to need further. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ratna, for sharing us those lessons. I'm very excited about this, actually, about think tank. I hope that we can have that in Southeast Asia, not only in South Asia. Now, last but not least, we have Ms. Arianti Savitri from Tanono Foundation. She is going to share her insight on building local capacity through the SDGs Academy. Your time is now, Ms. Savitri.
Okay. Thank you, Arya. How are you? Yes, and of course, colleagues and distinguished panelists, Professor Arif Yusuf, Dr. Yanuar Nugroho, Dr. Ratna, of course. Hi, everybody. So let me introduce, I'm Arianti Savitri, or you can call me Santi. I'm from Tanoto Foundation. So what is Tanoto Foundations before I start my presentations? So basically we are an independent family philanthropy based on the history, our founding fathers, Pak Sukanto Tanoto, who didn't really finish the education. So both Pak Sukanto Tanoto and Ibu Tina Bingi Tanoto, they're really being passionate about education, being passionate about human development. So based on that, they had this independent philanthropy using the platform of SDG to really as a guidance when they're doing all the activity, which is stationed or open in Indonesia, Singapore, China, and soon to be Brazil, and the future is going to be in Canada. So one of the things that our founding fathers believe is every person should have the opportunity to realize his or her full potential. So this is also in line with our SDG goals, which is no one left behind. Next slide, please. Okay, so SDG Academy Indonesia basically working on. So the slide moving because okay. So SDG Academy Indonesia. I'm sorry.
The slide's not moving.
It's not working.
It is operated by your side, Ibu Arianti.
Yes, by Ibu Tini. So let me see if.
Yeah, from her side.
Yeah. So if Ibu Tini can share screen soon. Let me see if I can share the slide because it's stuck. Anyway, let me continue while waiting for the SDG Academy Indonesia is basically with the vision as an innovative capacity building program aiming to increase Indonesia's state and non-state actors' capacity. So what we've been working here, SDG Academy Indonesia was born in 2019. And it was because of the good relationship. I think the partnership is one of the key factors here between the local government, the national government, and also with some university. When we developed this SDG Academy Indonesia together with the National Planning Agency, we have National Sekretariat also. Thank you for all the government of Indonesia. We finally make this happen because we want to change the paradigm coming from the lessons learned from the local government. We work together with the Riau province's government, and based on this Riau lesson learned, we developed capacity building to change the paradigm. We targeted individual, we also targeted institutional. We want to have the future leaders that can have the SDG in mind, SDG goals in mind when they're making some decision, and also sustainable institution when they try to work on changing the ecosystem or even influencing SDG related policy. Next. SDG Academy Indonesia is basically have 3 programs. First, we have SDG leadership programs. It's a 5-month program where we had these online courses and covering topics ranging from education, poverty, all other SDG specific issues, which is choose by the capstone project, and in the end, because we would like to have this hands-on experience, and some of our alumni from SDG leadership program has been successfully being sustainable, even replicate whatever we have in SDG coming from the SDG leadership programs. On top of that, we have mobile learning program, which is a free course, consists of 13 modules, which can be accessible from all over the world, but this is still in Bahasa Indonesia. But what we're trying to do with the SDG mobile learning program, we want to reach out and build the awareness coming from a different, not only academicians, but not only the government, but also scholars, but also the household, so everybody can have an access and have an awareness of this SDG Academy Indonesia. That's part. Some of the pictures you've seen here is one of the impacts is activity conducted by Ali Bustomi, SDG certified leaders in Dompet 2 Variau branch head. So it's basically what we're trying to do is really building the partnership for sustainability. If you see for the next, with the next slide, this is all our participants' profiles. So you can see coming from the national government, private sectors, academicians, CSO, and other philanthropy. So partnership is really important. We have participants' profile coming from a different segments. We have a different topics, and it's also covering coming from our mobile learning program. So I guess that's all from the SDG Academy Indonesia, from Tanoto Foundation, and we thank you because the partnership is not only with the government, but also with the university. One of the things that I forgot to mention is SDG modules that we have. We work together with one university, University of Indonesia, and together we developed 6 modules on that for the SDG leadership program. I guess that's all from me, Arya.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Savitri, for your time and information. Now, we move on to very exciting question and answer session. The question can be from Zoom also. So please join us. Now, when you ask a question, could you please mention your name and your institution? Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience here? Yeah. What is? Yeah. Yeah. Could you please mention your name and your institution? Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. I'm Leonardo Teguh Sambodo, a director from Ministry of National Development Planning of Indonesia. I would like to ask one question to Pak Arif, because you you have a statement that it is not about collaboration, but also understanding about data. So the challenge is how the understanding about data of SDG achievement, for example, can also be translated into different programs that are contributed by the stakeholders. So what will be the not the communication strategy, but what are the narrative, what are the messages that can be translated from this data into stakeholders that would like to contribute for the achievement of SDGs? Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Pak Teguh. Apa kabar? Yeah, maybe while we're waiting for others to give questions. So on data, maybe my comment is data is important in various ways for us in the university. Of course, from people who are doing research, data is necessary ingredients for our day-to-day works, yeah? To do research, to publish paper. But in this case, I think data is more important than that, because data also inform policy making in the context of SDG, and is even more challenging in SDGs because, as we know, SDG has big scope, as I mentioned previously. So data is important. However, the data itself is, maybe before I'm commenting more on data is not only the information we need, because data can give evidence based in the policy making, but data also can be picked in many ways that also can impact actions. I think so. To be able to make data impactful, data has to be processed, and then also data has to be repackaged, and that we have need collaboration not only from university but also from policy making, from communication specialists and things like that. So I'd like to quote that actually data should combine with others. For example, best practices. Data should be retold to become stories, because some old saying said that stories sometimes has better soul than data. So data is not the only ingredient. Data need to be processed by us. But another issue is, I think, because I also happen to be a member of the statistical Bappenas and the advisory board of Indonesian Statistics Office. So I learned actually that to collect data from the angle of statistician, it is not easy, because as a statistician you are trained to be careful. So to be careful, as an economist, maybe I'm not that trained as much to be careful in data, but as a statistician, that's different. So sometimes I have conflict with them. Come on, give me the data. No, I cannot give you the data. It's not ready yet, for example. So there are some challenge, yeah, in that. So that's I think my remark on answering this question. So data is the big issues in SDG, and I'm happy that Pak Teguh raised the issues, and we have many front in trying to improve that area, including from the statistical aspect, from the Bappenas aspect. Bappenas has tried to make the data in a form that is more communicable. Yeah? For example, in the form of dashboard, as I remember. And scientists like us also try to use the data to be able to use it to more policy making area. I hope that it may help answering the question. Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Wayne Nellis. I'm a Canadian, but a visiting scholar at Chulalongkorn University. Sorry, our president wasn't able to attend this session. I don't know why. Yes. So I don't in any way speak for him. I'm independent scholar, and first, just congratulate you on the very impressive set of presentations, and also the work that you're doing in Indonesia. I think there's a lot other countries could learn from you. So I just have first an observation and a question. I've been involved for the last 8 or 9 years off and on in Thailand. We did actually a study of Chulalongkorn University on one SDG in particular, SDG 2, and published a study I can share with you if you're interested after. And actually, I'd like to learn more about some of the work you've been doing. But my question is, what kind of relationships do you have with other universities other than in Indonesia on this kind of work? And how could this kind of how could there be more, I suppose, a scaling up of the sharing of models and of approaches and of data and of collaboration on cross-cutting issues that actually our cross-cutting of countries as well. We've also done a little bit of work in Thailand on this, for example, building a network on higher education for sustainable agriculture and food systems in Southeast Asia. Published some information on that as well, and collaborated with FAO on some of these issues. So, but specifically on the importance of universities and other institutions, research institutions, on contributing to the SDGs. So I'm interested, what is your relationship with other countries and scholars, collaboration together, etc.?
Thank you. So, Dr. Nugroho, you want to respond to that? I think we would be.
I thought Prof. Arif would like to respond, but maybe from our perspective, or from my perspective, it is not particularly on SDGs, but research collaboration in Indonesia has been quite a while, sir. So usually universities in Indonesia would engage with other universities, and then they would form a consortium or consortia bidding a certain call for proposals, usually. Like, for example, at the moment, between the government of Australia and Indonesia, they developed the so-called knowledge partnership platform, sort of, in which they would encourage universities or institutions in Indonesia to work together with those in Australia to in a certain topics. So in this kind of collaboration, yes, we do. But if you mention specifically in SDGs, on about SDGs, I don't think so. But what do you think, Prof. Arif? Maybe you, from your perspective, you know better.
I think I'd like the question. You're right on the point. Our weakness. So basically, I can say that our collaboration with an university outside Indonesia is much more intense than our collaboration between university in Indonesia. I have to say that. So sorry. But we need it because Indonesian universities are very diverse in terms of resource capacity. So, for example, from science program, for example, it is impossible to do independent within one university to do research because laboratory is not perfect. So sometimes we have to share laboratory. As I understand from my engagement with as Academy of Science, yeah. So we have to collaborate, and then there are effort atau there are network. I think Bu Rector is the one who know more about this collaboration. Maybe he want to say something or not. Maybe later. Maybe after we discuss this later on. So, but thank you for raising that point. I have to say that. that's our area of improvement. I think. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry to do this to everyone, but we have another session here soon. I'm so sorry to take that. But by the way, I think that before we close the session, I would like Dr. Nugroho to conclude it for us, to give some remark, and then we just close the panel discussion. I'm so sorry to take the microphone off you before.
I get bonus.
Okay. Thank you. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, friends, on behalf of the National Secretariat of SDGs implementation in the Ministry of National Development Planning, I would like to firstly thank you for all your participation and attendance. Second, just few things to remind us. I think from all participants, we know that as the government struggles to push many reforms in order to follow the mandate of SDGs, universities, as one of the country's most credible institutions, should be able to help. And that's the main message from today's session. Universities can engage the government and, of course, vice versa, in developing science-based or evidence-based policy reforms. Numerously, Prof. Arif mentioned about this, and also you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ratna. From conception down to design, implementation, monitoring, and even evaluation. I think this will greatly improve the credibility of any policy reform initiative, because Ibu Vivi mentioned universities are still seen by the public as possessing twin credentials, authority and independence. This, of course, can be capitalized to help countries smoothen their policy reforms needed in achieving SDGs agenda. So I believe that we now have better knowledge, I hope, and I believe about how partnership between academia, particularly university and public sectors or government, can help the achievement of SDGs. Also, the need for more dialogues. Prof. Arif just mentioned, also our colleague from Tanoto Foundation, dialogues between different stakeholders about how to optimize partnership between university and government to meet the challenge of achieving SDGs in 2030. So in conclusion, really, I do hope that this side event has been able to provide an opportunity for all of us to share good practices on how university, government, think tanks, thank you for your sharing again, partnership can help countries achieve SDGs and hence advance their progress. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Dr. Nugroho. Then that concludes the session. So thank you everyone for participating in this session. Let's have other discussion somewhere else. Have a good day. I'm so sorry.
Bye, everybody.
Husband and wife. I gave everyone love.
Thank you.